On September 1st, 2009, heavy rains caused flooding in the capital of Burkina Faso, Ouagadougou. 8 people died that day, and thousands of homes collapsed because of the rain, leaving tens of thousands of climate refugees. 3 months after those events, many are still living in refugee camps.
Nothing like the scenes of September 1st have been seen in living memory.
Floods such as these come as a surprise in a Sahelian country like Burkina Faso, which is wrestling with the problems of desertification.
Burkina Faso is definitely affected by climate change. When you speak to the peasants, they say they realize that the rains are becoming rare and are coming later than they did 20 or 30 years ago.
Part of the population has decided to tackle these environmental problems. In many schools, teachers have decided to make environmental education an important part of the curriculum in this West African enclave. Burkina Faso is situated south of the Sahara. Bordering nations include Ivory Coast, Mali, and Niger. It is one of the poorest countries in the world. It ranks 177th out of 182 countries, according to the United Nations Human Development Index. At the Dondala School, for example, which is located in the bush in the center of northern Burkina Faso, a number of trees have been planted around the school as part of a national project called One School, One Grove.
Class, today we are going to talk about the environment and why the environment is important. Every school must create its own school grove of trees.
In the schoolyard, the students took part in planting the trees.
To combat the desert, we must plant lots of trees. Trees are important. They provide fruits and shade, so then we can study in the schoolyard. Before winter comes, every student, each one of you, will plant a tree and take care of it.
At the SNEA-B school, children begin to look after the trees from the age of 6 by watering the young shoots. The National Union of African Teachers of Burkina Faso wanted to take one step further with environmental education by adding a new dimension: sustainable development education. It linked up with a trade union from the north, CSQ, the Quebec Trade Union Center, to organize a training session on sustainable development in Ouagadougou. 40 teachers from 13 regions in the country took part.
Obviously, the CSQ expertise is very enriching, and we are convinced that the model developed there can be transferred to Burkina Faso.
This model, the Brundtland Green Schools, commonly known as the EVB, was created in 1993 by the CSQ. According to Jean Robitaille, the Brundtland Green Schools model can be an inspiration for an African country such as Burkina Faso.
Values we are trying to promote are universal values. Ecology, particularly in Africa and in Burkina Faso, is very important. If the environment is deteriorated, we can hardly imagine that development can occur. There is an urgent need to take action on this and to educate the young, because education is the first source, the first weapon, and the most important condition for development. The other values, solidarity, democracy, and peace, are conditions that are also essential for development.
According to the Brundtland Green Schools model, school is a place of social change. Based on awareness raising as a form of education, the model covers 3 stages: observing reality, analyzing that reality, then changing it. To turn observing reality into a practical exercise, the participants were asked to prepare a discovery trail. The group walked through the streets surrounding the training center, identifying the challenges of sustainable development, linked to three themes: society, environment, and the economy.
Now I shall select a witness, a volunteer, someone from the crowd, and ask him to describe what he sees. The most striking thing is the sheer quantity of rubbish. There's so much.
In the observation tour, one participant asks a little girl why she's not in school.
We told ourselves that at her age the girl should be in primary school. It was a Tuesday, so why wasn't she in school? She told us that she comes from a village where she went to school. She followed her aunt to the town. Now she is housekeeping and doesn't go to school, so her aunt has turned her into a maid.
Girls' education is an important democratic tool, closely linked to the values upheld by the Green School model. Mrs. Maiga Zeli is a primary school teacher in the Sahel region. In her view, school is a tool for social change, particularly for girls.
I am a living example of social change. I was the first one to get a primary school certificate in my family and in my husband's family. I married very young. The fact that I went to school, that I stayed in school, and that I succeeded, I can say that I had success, made my mother change her mind, because at first she didn't want me to go to school because she had only 2 girls, and in my region, the Sahel, all the housekeeping is done by women. So when we have a girl, it is God's blessing because she will help us at home. When my father, a war veteran, made my inscription at school, it was like the sky fell on her head.
There was an American anthropologist, Margaret Mead, who said, all the changes that have taken place at the global level began with a small group of people who shared a single conviction. Change always comes about because some people say, this must change, and then they find the means to do it.
The training session is also aimed at producing a pedagogical textbook, like the one prepared in Niger the year before. For 3 days, the participants worked on preparing relevant educational activities for Burkina schools.
This is how the Burkina model works. First, the 40 people who've been trained will then each train another 10. So that's 400 people who will be trained once the original 40 go back to their region.
These teachers will be responsible to create a green schools network that could link up with the one in Niger.
Let me say that as far as my union is concerned, SNEA in Niger, I want to send a message of support and hope for the building of a Sahel Green Schools network that would incorporate the countries of Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso.
The desire to create a vast network of green schools in Africa is certainly shared by Education International. Alain Pellissier is a member of the executive board of Education International, which represents 30 million teachers in 172 countries.
It's very interesting to see that the position of EI on education for sustainable development has been in constant evolution, because in '98 we were talking most of all about environmental education. Now we are really talking about education to sustainable development, which also include a culture of peace, education to gender equity, education to cultural diversity, education to a fair consumption. So there's many items, many topics who are included in education to sustainable development.
To close the training session, the trainers planted 6 trees as a mark of their solidarity with the National Union of African Teachers of Burkina Faso and their commitment to sustainable development.